we realized that our education system rewards students by a nice report card that says, you know, this is who you are and this is what you get. So we thought, well, we need a moral education report card, because if the Baha'i writings say character and moral education development is more important than academic learning. The reason it says that is because if you really do the first one right, the second one becomes a given. In other words, you become academically very capable when you have good moral and character development. So we created a report card. The problem was there's certain spiritual principles that we believed were at work, and that is that nobody can assess your moral capability except for you. So we had mentor teachers who were going to sit down with the students and go over the moral capabilities report card. And that you can see on the back of the sheet that you've got, there are a list of moral capabilities, and essentially you can look at them and give yourself a mark on some of them, right? Okay, so since it's self-reflective, you put as you perceive yourself, you give yourself a grade as is listed on the bottom for each of those capabilities. And the second one is that as others perceive you, and they would be significant others whose opinion you respect, because that's important. We know we develop our capacities by our own view of ourselves and others. But this allows a very introspective kind of activity, but allows us to see what might be important to make progress. Since the body of humankind is one and indivisible, each member of the race is born into the world as a trust of the whole. This trusteeship constitutes the moral foundation. This is on the back of your paper, if your neck's sore from looking up. The trusteeship constitutes the moral foundation of most of the other rights, principally economic and social, which the instruments of the United Nations are attempting similarly to define. The security of the family and the home, the ownership of property, and the right to privacy are all implied in such a trusteeship. The obligations on the part of the community extend to the provision of employment, mental and physical health, care, social security, fair wages, rest and recreation, and a host of other reasonable expectations on the part of the individual members of society. The principle of collective trusteeship creates also the right of every person to expect that those cultural conditions essential to his or her identity enjoy the protection of national and international law. Much like the role played by the gene pool in the biological life of humankind and its environment, the immense wealth of cultural diversity achieved over thousands of years is vital to the social and economic development of a human race experiencing its collective coming of age. It represents a heritage that must be permitted to bear its fruit in a global civilization. On the one hand, cultural expressions need to be protected from suffocation by the materialistic influences currently holding sway. On the other, cultures must be enabled to interact with one another in ever-changing patterns of civilization, free of manipulation for partisan political ends. And this is a quote, you know, the concept of justice needs to be redefined, and I think this is a wonderful quotation. The light of men, Baha'u'llah says, is justice. Quench it not with the contrary winds of oppression and tyranny. The purpose of justice is the appearance of unity among men. The ocean of divine wisdom surgeth within this exalted word, while the books of the world cannot contain its inner significance. When we look at this, we say if the purpose of justice is unity, the whole world wants to have peace. We want to work towards that. Peace is the outcome of unity, and unity is based on justice. So in order to really move in that direction, we have to have consultative forums where justice is established. And essentially what the moral capabilities that are in this report card refer to is helping people develop the skills and the capacities and concepts that bring about a concept of social justice and empower individuals. It's difficult. There's one quotation where it said, "Beware lest the strong ones of the earth rob you of your power." And when I think about that quotation, I think, how do the strong ones of the earth rob us of our power? It's when we start to believe that what we could do would not make any difference. Watching last night, I saw that Americans spend $50 billion on pet care. And one woman was on television. She had a wild mouse that wandered into her apartment 3 weeks ago. It had a tumor, but she loved him. And she was spending $1,000 to get rid of the tumor. And I was thinking, what's wrong with this picture? You know, it's hard to relate really, when you hear the story, as we heard from Jessica, and you think about the condition of the world. I love animals, don't get me wrong. And don't misquote what I'm saying. But the fact is, we have a lot of things to be looking after. And we're going to have to do it quite differently if we're going to develop the political will. We don't have a shortage of technology. We don't have a shortage of anything but that will to want to make this change and the creativity to do that. So we're going to have to really develop these competencies together, democratic competencies, in order to solve problems, these new capacities. There are two things that need to come together for profound change, I think. One is moral repulsion. In other words, the issue has to be morally repulsive, such as what we're talking about here, that continually wasteful behavior allowing the world to be destroyed. That's morally repulsive now, thank God. But the second factor that has to come together is it has to be financially unviable. When these two things happen, that's when change takes place. My brother said one of his professors told him, people only change to avoid future change. So I think that's a rather dim view of humanity, but at the same time, I think there's some truth to it. So if we think about this, we have to say that the world now has rejected, over a long period of time, has rejected its fundamental unity. Now the planet itself is proclaiming it. You are interconnected, you have no choice, you have 3 seconds. 3 minutes. I reduced it, huh? Yeah. You have 3 minutes. You have 3 days. You have 3 weeks. And that's the situation that is moving us to change now, we hope. We hope. It's still not. We're certain it will. As a community, we're certain it will. But it will take a great deal of effort to move us in a new direction. The moral framework elements. Orientation of service to the common good. These are foundational elements of what the framework is that we propose and work on. This would mean that everyone has to become aware of the importance of service and community service. It has to be part of our education process. The purpose of leadership is personal and social transformation, not power and wealth. So a good leader will be judged on the merits of their own personal and social transformation for the development of the common good. Twin moral responsibilities to truth. Find it. That's number 1. Be lovers of the truth. Never be afraid to hear it. Be open to hearing it, and then actually put it into action. If you find something that's useful, you have to put it into action. These are the twin moral responsibilities. Transcendence through vision. We had a lot of discussion about this, how we have a vision that's different. When we connect what it is, the small things we're doing, like changing light bulbs, etc., to the changes we want to see, it becomes valuable. Everyone's probably heard the story of the bricklayer, 2 bricklayers who are moving bricks, and one's grumbling and really quite nasty and miserable. And somebody says, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm moving bricks." And he wasn't happy about it. The other one's happily whistling, doing exactly the same job, singing away. And they said to him, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm building a cathedral." He was able to connect his mundane task to a bigger vision. And I think we should have a better vision than just surviving. It might not be too much to ask. We should go beyond that. Now, sometimes we don't want to change. You heard about the monk who did a vow of silence, and he wasn't going to say anything. And so he was praying to God, wasn't paying attention, fell over a cliff. And he fell down about 40 feet, and he grabbed onto the root of a branch. And he looked down, it was about 80 feet down, and all of a sudden he realized, I have a vow of silence, I can't even call out. What will God think if I do this? He knows I'm here, but my arm's getting tired. So anyway, he gets over that, and he decides to say, "Is there anybody up there? God will forgive me, I hope. Is there anybody up there?" And this voice answers, "Yes." And he said, "Well, who is it?" And the voice said, "It's God." So he's not sure what side of him he's on right now. But he then says, "Well, can you help me?" And God said, "Yes." So he's waiting, getting more tired. And he says, "Well, what must I do?" And God says, "Let go of the branch." And he looks down, and it's 80 feet, and he looks up, it's 40. He says, "Is there anybody else up there?"